Hi everyone, thanks for this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have the incredible Grammy Award-winning Roc Nation artist Victory. Victory has just dropped her amazing new song, Just Like Heaven, from her upcoming, highly anticipated new album, Glory Hour. The track showcases Victory's distinct and soulful vocals, bringing the full measure of her talent that blends gospel, blues, folk, pop, and soul musical styles. Just Like in Heaven follows the breakout song El Shaddai, which has gathered more than 1.2 million Facebook views to date. Welcome, Victory, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
You're really welcome. How's it all been going over there?
My day is going really well, just gearing up for this album release and trying to stay as paced as I possibly can because I know it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely really exciting. I can imagine the excitement that's building and the momentum behind it. So, yeah, it's incredible.
Been many
But
years in the
wonderful. All right, let's just jump straight into it. Take us back. Let's tell me about what life was like growing up for yourself. Obviously, you come from a big family, and yeah, everything to relate to that.
yeah. So growing up, there was always music. There was always togetherness. I have eight siblings, and our two parents. So we grew up on the west side of Detroit, and in Michigan, and it was just a lot of music and a lot of we were homeschooled at the time. When we were kids, so we were always together, and music was our livelihood. Pretty much ever since I could remember, we always were involved in music for a living as a family, together as a family. So and there was no outside like school situation. So it was like we worked together, we learned together, and we grew together, and uh, definitely an interesting upbringing. I thought that was normal because that was my normal, but it turned out to make some incredible human beings that are really gifted. So I'm glad to be in the number.
Sensational. And what does family mean to you?
You know, family to me is it's it's your roots. Without your family, it's hard to understand identity. You know what I mean? And because especially as long as my life is very family oriented. So a lot of my identity was my family, and I've had to grow into a new identity as an individual. And that's not to throw away everything that my family means to me, but to step out and take initiative for who I am based off of what choices I make, as opposed to the environment that I happen to be born in, if that makes sense. But
Oh,
it's it definitely means a lot, and it really, to me, it mirrors an even greater dynamic of uh, the family, like a spiritual family, like the family that you get to choose, and the family that you get to love for the rest of your life. And the family that is God's family, God as our Father, and so it's central to how the whole world goes around.
yeah, that's great. I totally get what you're saying. I think yeah, it's really great insights, and yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. Uh, tell me about tell me about the new album. Talk to me about that, and obviously the new song, Just Like Heaven, that you dropped. Tell me about all that, and yeah, what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, so Glory Hour, it's inspired by the sunrise, in the morning. I used to have the studio called The Secret Place, and it has these two ginormous 8-foot windows that overlook the skyline of New York City. And every day at 7 a.m., you go in there and it's dark, right? But at about 7:10, it starts to get lighter. 7:30, it's like the sun is just peeking over the buildings. By the time it's 7:45, the whole room is filled with glory, the glory of the sun. And by the time it's 8 a.m., it's like, it's just full blown. And so to me, glory hour is the appointed time that darkness has to reckon with the glory of the sun. And when you see that happen, darkness is nowhere to be found. And not only is it nowhere to be found, but it's completely swallowed in intense radiance of the glory of the sun. And to me, this is a metaphor of the points of darkness in our life. Sometimes it's intensely dark, but I believe that if we simply just wait, we wait and we put our hope, we put our faith in the greater power, which my experience is putting my hope and faith in Jesus, and seeing that though it's dark right now, this too will pass as soon as he comes to redeem the time. And so my goal with this album is to inspire people to wait for glory hour. You know, you might be in a dark moment. You know, you see darkness all around in our society, in our schools, in our culture, and it can sometimes feel helpless and hopeless. But I believe that our job is to wait with faith and hope for the appointed time when the glory of the sun is going to swallow up darkness. And so that's the whole inspiration of the album. And I want to encourage and inspire people to dare to believe, and to dare to believe in Jesus. And if you don't have enough faith for that at the moment, then at the least dare to believe that things will get better.
That's extraordinary, and that's inspiring, even how you articulated that. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you.
When you're writing the songs, what's the process like there? And I guess specifically, obviously you touched on how you draw inspiration from the album, but when you're writing a song, where does that come from, and how do you get it? Like, how do you actually get the process of it?
Yeah, so my process has evolved. When I first started writing songs, I was very particular about getting it right and getting the most well-crafted piece of music that I could possibly make. And so it was a lot of brainiac kind of things, a lot of like using my brain to crack the code, and anything sloppy, anything, I just can't have anything that's not pristine. That was my mindset. But then I worked with Kanye, and I saw that process where he leveraged a lot of humanity in its raw state and just expressed it, no matter how messy, no matter how much it doesn't make sense, no matter, even if it's just grunts and moans or seemingly gibberish, let it all out and then take it through a process of refinement after that. So my job on that team was to take the songs in their raw state of being, and then craft stories and lyrics and narratives into that specific structure. And so that experience for me, where I was like writing every day, like 3 songs a day, but I was never trusted with the freedom part, because I was too scared to make something that wasn't perfect. You know what I mean? And Kanye's not scared of anything. So like, he's got the freedom part. And so what that showed me was several things. One is, most people can't access the genius that is inside of them because they're too afraid of being rejected. They're too afraid of not being good enough. And so we all reach for the version of ourselves that is edited and good enough and, ready for consumption. We don't want to be laughed at. We don't want to be, ridiculed. He doesn't care about that. So he got to express all these things that can only be found when in the messiness. Even look at how babies are born. No baby is born in a cute, perfectly packaged context. It's always messy. It's always in the midst of just the rawness of our human experience in all pain and all. So anyways, me seeing that process gave me the revelation that the biggest thing in songwriting has got to be, we got to have a level of self-acceptance, regardless of if it makes sense or not, if it's cute, if it's packaged, right? And then just don't judge it before it comes out. Like, let it come out. And this led me to put language to this method of writing. I call it freedom writing. Well, when it's done by Christians, I call it freedom writing because there's a scripture that says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom, right? And so, but if you're not a Christian and you're doing this method of writing, I call it vessel writing. It's where you become a vessel to the spirit realm. It might not be the spirit of Jesus, but it might be another spirit. That's why a lot of people get high and they just act as a vessel and let whatever comes through from the spirit realm come through, and they don't judge it, but then later they edit it. So most of these, almost all the songs were written in this process of freedom writing, where I partnered with the Spirit of Jesus specifically, and I just let everything flow through me. I might be playing guitar, I might be playing the piano. I let it flow through me, and then I edit it later. I try to make sense out of it later. So I have some recordings that are like 30 minutes long of just streams of consciousness, just like in heaven specifically. This recording that I did, I didn't sit down, I'm going to write a song. No, I just was in prayer and worship, and I picked up my guitar, and I didn't have words. Words was not what was in my spirit. I had a breath and a rhythm, and I started and I was rubbing my guitar, and the rubbing on the guitar had a rhythm too. I didn't know, and I didn't need to know what I was doing. I just kept doing it, and my voice memo was running, and then I just kept going. Man, I played a piece of that voice memo to one of my producers, and he's like, that's the record. He took it and he sampled it and he sped it up. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I crafted different sections of that freedom writing and put specific lyrics that rhymed. And, I edited in a tight rhyme pattern and a tight, concept and narrative. So that's like the part two of taking the raw substance and then working it to make a song out of it. So many of the songs were created like that.
Wow, that's sensational. You just blew my mind. Like that's truly, it's sensational. Like, wow. Wow. You touched on Kanye. Tell me, what is he like? Obviously you're very close to him. What is the relationship like? And I guess, yeah, how did that evolve to the relationship?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that I'm close to him these days, but at the time, it was a beautiful relationship, in that I learned so much, and he really believed in me a lot. I never wrote raps before in my life, and he trusted me to write his raps. Like, what? I couldn't understand why, but he believed that I was the best songwriter in the world. And I dared to agree with him and keep giving him the songs that, his faith in me helped me, it fueled me to show up and give 100% in something that I'd never done before. And I was able to find success in that. So he's definitely a lot of people's big brother. He has an outrageous faith, and he's really sensitive to people that he's sensitive to people that are that might find themselves being bullied, or people that might find themselves being made fun of. Like he likes to be a defender, and he's really got himself in a lot of complicated things with the recent things that happened. And I think sometimes the challenge is when you operate so much out of your emotions as he does, and not out of you don't put your brain back on, you just keep going from your emotions, from you can get into a lot of messy things, but I think underneath it all is someone who is fearless and is searching to find what is the highest demonstration of the highest demonstration of expression at times, and sometimes that can jeopardize the highest demonstration of love. If all you're about is expressing yourself in its highest form and no one can stop me, that can get in the way of keeping love at the top, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what we experienced. But for me, I want to maintain. I'll always love him. That broke my heart a lot, what we witnessed. But I'll never not love Kanye.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing and explaining too. That's really nice. Actually, tell me too. You obviously signed to Roc Nation label. That's incredible. Truly, well done. Congratulations on that. What was that? Like that's once in a lifetime, I guess, experience that many people have, right? What was that like with Jay-Z and everything relating to that?
Yeah, Jay and I, we've had a handful of interactions, though he was the one that signed me originally. And he too demonstrated a lot of faith in me. And he was one of the first influential people to not only validate my artistry, but to put investment behind it. And so, it's a remarkable story, and I think, yes, definitely, a fairy tale kind of story, a girl who's singing in Central Park for 10 years and with her family singing, and and then out of all people in the world, Jay-Z is the one that it gives me a record deal. So definitely I know it's something divinely orchestrated, and I have a purpose at Roc Nation. And even though I've been signed there for about 6 years now, and we've been through many ups and downs, but I I feel like it's more about the long haul. Their motto is greatness is a process. You know what I mean? So I'm on my process of greatness, specifically with them in this relationship. And yeah, I'm excited to see how things turn out.
Well, you're definitely on it. Your trajectory, your humility. You're an amazing human being. I can just tell the vibe, just your attitude. It's incredible. It's sensational, truly.
And
All right, let's take me back. Obviously, you had an accident too. How did that change your life? And I guess obviously the pain, which it's sad. Well, how did that change you? And when you endured it as a person?
yeah, yeah. So that was about 10 years ago. I was 18, and it was the summer of 2013. And you know, I had lived quite a bit of life up to that point, believe it or not. Um, and but what was really exciting at that time was my future, because I had just finished high school, and me and my siblings, we just moved in with our dad. Our parents had separated. We went through all this crazy stuff, life stuff, and then we moved in with our dad, and it was just like a fresh start. And I'm 18 years old, and I'm growing as a guitarist, as a singer, as a songwriter, and I can be anything I want to be in this world. That was my vibe. And being in the New York area, you don't really drive cars. You take the train, you take the subway. But I was excited. Even like as soon as I turned 18, I got a bicycle, and I rode it everywhere, and that also felt like freedom and coming of age. And then one day, I just got in an accident on my bike, and I could have died. So grateful that I didn't. But what did happen was I lost everything that made me valuable, or so I thought, in a split second. My jaw was broken. My face was disfigured. I lost teeth. My arm was broken. So they had to wire my mouth shut, and they had to, I couldn't play the guitar. They bandaged up my arm. And so I couldn't, during that time, I couldn't find the courage to call myself victory anymore, because I didn't see a basis for why I could claim that as my identity. I felt utterly defeated. Just think about it. The jaws of victory were clenched shut. Like that says defeat more than anything. And so because of this intense darkness, and literally my religion was shattered too. Everything I thought I knew about Christianity, so like it didn't matter, because it's like that's not strong enough to save me right now. Right. I like all of the things I thought are not strong enough to save me at this point of darkness. But what happened was I needed a new revelation that was strong enough to meet me at this intense point of darkness. And I encountered a more intense revelation of the glory of God in that very intense reckoning with darkness and pain and defeat and all of that. And so what happened was I discovered for the first time in my life, the whole point of a savior, which I thought I knew. I grew up Christian. I thought I knew it. But no, the whole point of a savior was because God knew that I wouldn't be strong enough. There was going to be a moment when my victory would come to an end. And he knew that, you know, this world, there's so much treachery that happens in this world. There's bound to be something that would unjustly, or anything's liable to happen in this world. You know what I mean? And so we might not be able to overcome the world, but that's why he came, to overcome the world for us. He said, in this world, you will have many troubles. Jesus said this, but fear not, for I have overcome the world. And what I learned was that, you know, even if I'm not strong enough to overcome, that's okay. Even if I'm not strong enough to win, that's okay. Even if I'm not strong enough to be successful and climb up all these success mountains and ladders, and it's okay. He's strong enough, and he won the victory for me. He literally defeated death itself, went to the cross, died, rose again, because he knew that I wouldn't have the power to do that myself. And so that revelation came to me in that lowest place, that, oh my gosh, I can claim his victory though I didn't earn it. He already been here, done this, and defeated this. And so what I did was I latched on to him and I claimed his victory as my own. And so since then, I've the basis on which I claim, the basis on which I call myself victory is not because of how strong and victorious I am, but because of how strong and victorious he is. And I know that there's nothing that can triumph over his victory. And as long as I just lay hold of what he's done, I will always and forever be able to claim this. And so, yeah, that's what happened in that accident.
Thanks for sharing. And you really articulated everything too extremely well then. So yeah, it's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. What does success look like for you? Like what, obviously you just touched on, you know, the measures of success and climbing, all these things. What is it, I guess, that, you know, really you measure yourself personally, I guess, to a level that would be success?
Yeah. For me, my goal is, I have a few goals, you know. I want to be able to impact culture, not only with my voice, but to empower other artists to do the same. I think that our culture is very much dictated by the arts, by the songs that we meditate on, and by the things we watch on our screens, our televisions, our phones. And so we need a cultural revolution in the arts and entertainment industry. I think if we put more emphasis on arts and less, we won't have much work left to do by the time it gets to policy. You know what I mean? People always put all these billions of dollars into policy and fighting for their agendas and policy, but how much do you empower artists to feed people's souls with principles of love and principles of life and principles of justice and all of these things? And so I want to see culture changed. And I know that the arts and entertainment industry play a big role in that. And so I want to be a part of that revolution. And to me, that's not a quick route. That's like a 50-year journey. I mean, if you look at hip hop, for example, look at where it is now and look at where it started, like when Jay-Z first started his career, you know, like it had very little impact on culture. But now it's like a lot of the music that is consumed is hip hop. You know what I mean? It's like it's influenced just about every culture. And so I want to see that kind of cultural revolution happen. And I want to be a part of it. And I want to empower other artists. I want to, so that to me is success. And it doesn't always look like running ahead and going to go, just focusing on what's the best for me. But sometimes it does. So, I'm figuring it out step by step.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. What inspires you daily?
Yeah. I'm inspired. This might sound redundant, but I'm inspired by moments of glory. Like you can read a story like the story of Harriet Tubman, and you see all the darkness, all the injustice, you see all of that, but then you see that she defies it all. It's like defying gravity. It's like defying, all the rules that say it's impossible, freedom is impossible. And then she just lays hold of a different, she believes differently, and walks almost in another reality, and manifests freedom, the reality of freedom, until her surroundings have to agree with it. That's a story of glory, and so I'm continually inspired by different things like that. It just points to this truth that we don't have to just sit back and agree with what the world gives us. We can have a greater hope.
Cool. Tremendous. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That I've ever received? I've received a lot of advice throughout my life, but there's this recent piece of advice I actually heard a pastor say. And he was saying not to focus on gaining influence, but rather focus on increasing in faithfulness. Because if you stay faithful, everything else will follow, and sometimes, especially, when you have to have metrics and you have to measure up, and, everything counts so that you can move the needle in your career, it's easy to slip into a mindset where you're chasing influence, chasing success, quote unquote. But I think that pursuing faithfulness is a much more, it's a much more grounding pursuit, and the return on it is something has much more longevity effects. I just want to wake up today and faithfully steward my inbox, faithfully steward every interview, and every, like that's just my goal. Faithfully steward my social media, and that's all I can do. So that's some really wise advice for me recently.
Wonderful. Victory, thank you for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. I've really enjoyed interviewing. I think you're an amazing human being, and everything you've done and what you're doing. And yeah, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.